Have you come across someone who's just had a really great idea and they have this great problem that's solved by that idea? It's a match made in heaven, and they have interest, they have funding, they have momentum, they have a plan, and you look at that idea and just say, wow, that's a really great idea. You want to be able to create ideas like that. And this training series is intended to show you how to do that. You see, creativity is not just inspiration. It's not just those random aha moments that come to you. There is a science behind it. And I can teach those parts of creativity. And so we're going to start with looking at great problems, not looking immediately for great ideas. So focus on the great problems and then you can solve for them. And I'm going to start by looking at examples of how other people have solved great problems. Let's look at this hall. This hall has two screens and two projectors. Normally you would shine those projectors directly onto the screens, no problem, it's simple. The building architects elected to put angled walls next to the stage and for those screens. And so you can see, now we have a new problem, that you can't shine projectors directly onto the screen because the aspect ratio would not be correct. The projector needs to be perpendicular. So they place these projectors in the correct position, but it forces the light beams of the two projectors to cross each other. I find this fascinating. And normally you walk into a hall like this, you're not paying attention, you don't notice the problems that have been solved here. You can see the red beam from the left projector to the right screen and the green beam from the right projector to the left screen. And you can see they cross each other. This is a sign of electromagnetic theory at work. Electromagnetic theory allows differing electromagnetic waves to pass each other intact. There's no interference. The picture is fine. There's no coupling. There's no distortion at all. Now you can do the same thing with two flashlights. You can at home you can shine the beams across each other, and you'll see there's no effect from one to the other. And while that's interesting, it's really a science project. It's good for teaching the electromagnetic theories and other physics, but it doesn't solve a great problem. This example in the hall does solve a great problem. And those are the kinds of problems that we're looking for, that we're noticing as we go through life. Let's take another example of the spare tire in your car. You know, for many years, vehicles came with these full-size tires. And many creative designers found places to store these large tires in the trunk compartment or under the body of the car or bolted to the tailgate, some place to put it so that it was available in the case of a flat tire emergency. Over time, those full-size tires gave way to slim and trim temporary tires, which were easier to hide. The temporary tires, more recently, they gave way to emergency fill kits, which were even easier to hide and cheaper. So at each stage, the features were removed for the end customer to reduce the required space consumption. With temporary tires, the maximum speed was reduced and drive handling was compromised. With emergency fill kits, the quality of sufficient repair is questionable. Will it work when you need it to work? Now, if the hole is a small hole from a nail or a screw, likely that the emergency fill kit will work just fine and you'll be on your way. If the blowout is more substantial, then that may not be sufficient. So while it's true that flat tires are rare, the ease of mind of the old-fashioned full-size tire is gone. So this is a great problem looking for a better solution. And once you find such a great problem, there's a series of questions that will come to mind, but there's really two questions that you have to ask yourself first. And the first one is, have consumers accepted the current solution, even if it's inferior to yours? Are they okay with it? Or are they motivated for a new solution? Now, even if they're not motivated for a new solution because they think this is as good as it's going to get, you can still bring forward your new idea. just know that there's going to be some work to market and launch your idea into that marketplace. The second question is, do you have passion to solve this particular problem? You see, you're going to invest your time and effort into it. So you want to pick a great problem that really is interesting to you. So we need to have some form of a framework to take all of these great problems and list them and prioritize them. And so let's talk now about what kind of framework we could put in place. And I would suggest a few things here. You want to make your problem bold and broad and a little bit unreasonable. It can impact a whole sector of people, an industry, or a product category. The spare tire problem can impact millions of cars across the globe. And to make it a little unreasonable, you can include in that definition of the problem to include all makes and models of all vehicles. This is how you change the world. Big problems require big ideas. The second tenet that I would list here in this framework is to make the problem new. And by new, I mean more than just tweaking an idea to make it better. Okay, that's a good thing, but it falls in the just do it category. It doesn't require a lot of research, a lot of effort. It just do it. You know what needs to be done, make it better. These optimizations are expected as a normal part of many jobs. You know, the great problem should actually add to your workload because it's beyond expectations of your role and current work. And this is where many people stop and say, okay, wait, more work? No thanks. I have enough already, thank you. See, the key line of thinking here is to also choose where you can divest when you invest. Divest when you invest. That means finding work that excites you and taking on that work. And also offloading work that doesn't excite you. And in many roles, workers have discretion of exactly how they use their time. So use your time well and put your manager to work to help you offload less urgent tasks. Now, to motivate your manager to help you offload, the great problem must be valuable to your company. You know, solving the great spare tire problem is not valued outside of the automotive industry. So if your company makes donuts, there's likely no interest in spare tire inventions. But don't worry, there are many great problems. Becoming good at problem hunting takes practice, and you must be choosy on where you invest your efforts. Don't give yourself or others a rock fetch, which is just busy work that creates this artificial sense of productivity. So you want to hold back for really finding that problem that's the right one for you. Be choosy. No busy work. Wait for that big problem to reveal itself. Another tenet we can add to this list is to consider areas that currently have only one solution. That means that everyone else has stopped working on the problem. You know, temporary tires gave way to emergency fill kits, and that's it. There's no other solution. So when you see this single solution environment, you need to ask yourself why. Why is that so true? Let's look at some other cases where there are single solutions. Why is it that fast food drive-thrus all look the same? And why do many of them have two windows, but they only use one? And what would it take to get drive-through wait time down from 60 seconds to 10 seconds, which was the original intent of having two windows? Another question, why are stoplights, traffic stoplights timed at fixed intervals and sequences? We've all waited at the red light with no other traffic. Why does it need to be that way? Another question, one of my favorites, why are all vacuum cleaners so noisy? Who said that's okay? The person that comes up with an effective and quiet vacuum cleaner will take over that marketplace. There are many single solutions around once your awareness is opened. So now if you have partners in your journey of creativity, they must also have the same passion for great problems as you do. We've all experienced a group assignment or a team effort where one person does a considerable amount of the work, but the whole group or team gets credit for it. Those cases are necessary in a large corporate environment. You have a large team. The task is bigger than one or two people, so you need a large team to get it all done. But this is different. You get to pick your partners. There's no shame or guilt in gracefully picking partners for your incubation work. An open dialogue can go a long way to ensure that the right partners are on the same journey of invention as you are. Okay, so let's shift to go just a little bit deeper in one industry. Let's talk about the personal computers. See, I believe that the personal computer industry is ripe for innovation, even now. The desktop and notebook businesses are thriving. They have continuous evolution of CPU and memory and I/O performance, and the amount of data storage and refined display resolutions and the overall improving user experience has continually enhanced these products year over year. Why is that? What's driving the change? So let's look at a few opportunities to improve, continually enhance the personal computer. Let's start with thermal transfer. There are two established methods to transfer heat away from the CPU and GPU, namely heat pipes and vapor chambers. Each of them have their benefits, but vapor chambers are generally a lot more expensive than heat pipes. So we really need more than just these two solutions. Maybe there's something in between, or maybe there's something radically different as well that can move heat away from the CPU. Another one is miniaturization of the electronics themselves. Traditional electronic assembly process solders standard components onto a motherboard. It takes a fixed amount of space, there's really not much else you can do besides using these standard components. But if you switch your thinking to use processes that's used in the semiconductor business for integrated circuits, these same components that you would put on your system board or your motherboard without the protective packages can be placed on a substrate like a semiconductor would be placed, and that could be placed in a fraction amount of the space on that substrate, and then that whole assembly can then be encapsulated, and then that can be placed on a system board as normally would be done for other ICs. So now the question is, what circuits should be miniaturized to save space? You see, we have to find the balance between economics and volume and cost of doing the miniaturization. It's an interesting problem area. Acoustics is another one. As the CPU and GPU performance increase, the power requirements go up, the heat goes up. That means the thermal solution has to remove more heat. And so the increased airflow creates that acoustic noise. Fan motors make acoustic noise. And so we need a better way to deal with acoustics. It's a continuing problem. There are many others. Unused connectors or sub assemblies within the computer. Another area, because when you configure a computer, portions of that computer are not activated for that configuration depending on what the customer paid for. So you're leaving in that product some dormant circuits that are paid for but never used. Seems like there should be another way to handle configurability without burdening the cost of unused parts. There are many more. I won't cover them all. There's many of them in this industry. But you can look at this list and you can see that only one actually is actively being worked right now. The USB standards body is working on a new way to deliver more power input into a system through that Type-C connector. The rest of these problems are waiting for a champion to step up, own them, and create solutions. Now, I know it's difficult to gain full insight into these problems without more discussion about the problem itself and what makes it a great problem. If you're skilled in the art of PC design, you relate to some of these problems. But the point really isn't to drill down on these specific problems. The point is to show how you can make a list and how you can discover what great problems might be. In one class I taught, there was a student who mentioned that, none of these problems really related to her very well. And so for the next class, the next day, I listed a second set of problems. And the ones with green check marks here have a champion, and they're getting solved. So remember, part of the definition of a great problem is that it needs to be valuable to you. You're investing your time. So the list can be very long, but if it's not interesting to you, then it might as well not be there at all. You want to find great problems that are of interest. So to start your list of great problems, you have to start. Make a list, even a crummy list, but start. You can polish the list, you can prioritize it, you can add, you can delete, but you need to start. And to create some accountability for yourself, share your list with a trusted peer. Get honest feedback on just how crummy your list really is. And this will motivate you to improve it. And most importantly, your mind will be on the lookout for new problems to add. Put your subconscious to work. I'll teach more about the subconscious and how you can kick it into gear another time. But this creation of the list, keeping it active, keeping a living list, so to speak, will keep your subconscious working. And this needs to become a habit that you develop. You find that creative people are always observing the world around them, and they're noticing some things, and that motivates them, it gives them energy, and they continue to fuel that creative activity. So I want to leave this video segment with one final thought. We don't set out to create problems. The problems are already there. We're on a hunt to find them, to discover them. They're right before our eyes. Look more purposefully, and you too will begin to see problems, and they'll turn into new opportunities for innovation for you. Thanks for your time and attention. Let's go hunting.